Thank you, Sarah. Welcome to everybody to this evening and this afternoon's webinar. It's really brilliant to see so many friends and so many businesses on here interested in the opportunities that there are for international trade between our two parts of the world. For those of you that haven't met me, I'm Alison Henderson. I'm Chief Executive at Dundee and Angus Chamber of Commerce, and this work that we're doing on behalf of Scottish businesses is part of our partnership in the Scottish Chambers of Commerce National Network. The Scottish Chambers Network represents more than 12,000 businesses, and this work that we're doing is part of the work with the Scottish Government in encouraging international trade. So the work supports any Scottish business that wants to explore either new markets or brand new export opportunities in order for us to build our economic capability and make sure that our businesses are truly global and are making the most of the opportunities that are out there. And I guess, you know, for those of you that are in Scotland wondering, okay, well, why Virginia? Why have we chosen to kind of do this work? There are a few reasons. So Dundee as a city is twinned with Alexandria, and we have long associations with that part of the world. Also, one of our team, Keith, who's not with us this evening, but works really hard on our international trade connections, attended an online event earlier on this year to listen to the opportunities that Virginia and the US in general held for Scottish businesses. And so he had the luxury of listening to a couple of our speakers already, so I'm already looking forward to hearing from them. And then also Ellen and I met not long before we all kind of went home to start working remotely, and were, you know, she very much impressed on me about the economic opportunities and investment opportunities that Virginia can bring to Scottish businesses, and just the ease with which we should both be able to kind of foster international trade and business connections. So it's really great to have so many speakers being able to showcase the wider opportunities that there are. And so today what we're going to do is run through the economic landscape of that part of the world in Virginia and in Alexandria. We're also going to hear the business voice and hear what it's like to do business in the US, and then there'll be time for questions. And we've got a number of other partners that will kind of help chip in with their thoughts on some of the answers to what we hope will be a number of questions about, okay, so what happens next? How do we truly build these connections? How can you find me the best business opportunities and the best people to connect with as we're doing this work? I'll come on at the end after we've done our Q&A and just talk about what the next steps will be and how the Chamber Network can help you build those international connections. So I want to introduce Ellen to you. So just to come on and just say a few opening remarks and just add her welcome to mine. So Ellen Wong, she is the Principal Officer of the US Consulate General based in Edinburgh, and is enjoying this, what's about to be a Scottish winter, I guess, Ellen, but dark nights and cold but crispy days. So Ellen, over to you.
Thank you so much, Alison. And as you all can hear, I do not normally sound like a cartoon mouse. I have a bit of laryngitis, so I'm going to keep my remarks very short. But I couldn't pass up this opportunity to join the Dundee and Angus Chamber of Commerce's Doing Business in Virginia webinar. It's fantastic to see so many businesses represented here, as well as all your enthusiasm for doing business in the United States. I'm especially thrilled to see this business connection develop, because one of the first US Scotland organizations I got to know here in Scotland was the Dundee Alexandria Twinning Association. They were kind enough to invite me to a lovely Thanksgiving dinner at the Dundee and Angus College 2 years ago. The students there did a wonderful job cooking a good old-fashioned Thanksgiving dinner. And I saw firsthand the long-standing people-to-people and youth connections developed through this twinning between Dundee and Alexandria, Virginia. And so it's really great to be able to add this economic and business dimension to this already rich relationship. You have such a great lineup of speakers that will be able to speak in much better detail about the opportunities available in Virginia and how best to navigate the US market. I'll just say that having lived in the Virginia and DC metro area on and off for the last 22 years, I know it's a really vibrant market with lots of opportunities for the high quality and innovative goods and services offered by Scottish businesses. And it's an excellent gateway to the rest of the vast US market. So thank you all for your interest in doing business in the United States. My team at the US Consulate General in Edinburgh, as well as our colleagues at the US Embassy in London, are here if you would like to discuss expansion to the United States further. And so thanks again for having me here today, and best of luck with your expansion to the United States.
Ellen, I hugely appreciate your time, and I know that you've not been feeling so well, so I'm really glad that you were able to join us, and just wish us very well. You've been a huge help to us as a chamber in helping us understand the opportunities, and I know that we'll carry on being in close contact with you, so thank you so much. I'd like to hand over just to add to our opening remarks from the other side of the pond. So I'm really honoured that we are joined by Brian Ball tonight. So tonight, your afternoon, Secretary of Commerce and Trade in Virginia. Brian, if you would like to just say a few words. You're on mute. There you go. That's you.
The two most common words now. You're muted. I'm sorry. I thank you so very much for inviting me to speak to you all this evening. And you were talking a bit about the dark nights, and Allison and I and Ellen were talking before we got on with all of you. I was 9 years, as what you would say, a wee bairn in England, and so I know a bit about when it gets dark when you're walking home from school at 3:30. So, but I wish you well, and I hope you all are able to stay safe as we work our way through this COVID environment, which I hope we're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. And I want to welcome all of you to the webinar, and again, Allison and Counsel General Wong, I want to thank you for hosting this. And we do have strong ties, and I'm going to brag about Virginia. I know some will brag about other parts of the country, but Virginia and Scotland have strong ties going back to when this country when we were a colony, and one of which in particular relates to Alexandria, because I think here in just a few days, December 5th, there's always a Christmas walk parade which features Scots and Americans with Scottish ancestry walking together in Alexandria. And it's just so timely. I was just yesterday visiting a company in Abingdon, Virginia, which is in the far southwest, probably somewhat comparable to your Highlands. And this will sound familiar to you: Speyside Bourbon Cooperage, and they make barrels. And this is part of the Speyside whiskey outfit that's right there in Scotland. And this is one of their subsidiary operations. And they make barrels, and they sell those barrels to the bourbon industry, they've opened up a very substantial manufacturing facility here, of which we're very proud. And I am not a bourbon drinker, but I am a single malt Scotch drinker, and I'm pleased to tell you I like the peaty ones in the winter, and the more lighter ones in the summer months. But these barrels get used to make to house bourbons, and then after they've done their tour of duty there, they are refurbished and they are sent to Scotland and used to store single malt Scotch. So they have a long usage. They're a wonderful product, and it's just a great example of a Scottish-based company doing business in Virginia. And then, just as another sort of a quirky aside, you have a very famous sculptor named Sandy Stoddard, and he is, I think, over near Glasgow, and he has just done a Joan of Arc statue for Longwood University, which is one of our smaller schools here, and Joan of Arc is their patron saint, I guess you would say, and he's done a wonderful life-size rendering of Joan of Arc, and I got to have dinner with him and a lot of other folks here earlier in the year. So much going on. And back to sort of the business end of things, we have an organization here called the Virginia Economic Development Partnership, which is helps businesses of all size grow here. We start with small companies. We have large companies like Amazon, which now has its second headquarters here. And Anja Abshore, with whom I've gotten to know and work over the time I've been in this job, is absolutely fantastic. And she's right there in Europe and very close by. And she's willing to travel anywhere at any time to be of help to all of your members there. And so I encourage you to, if you have questions about doing business, particularly in Virginia, she is a wonderful resource, and we're hoping as we all get vaccinated, we'll be back on the road in the coming months, and we'll be able to see you there. I do want to brag a bit about Virginia. We do have a world-class port here, and it's the easiest port of call for you all to reach, we believe, on the East Coast. We have Washington Dulles Airport just to the north of us. And there are direct flights from Edinburgh, and so you're not in a situation where you have to do lots and lots of connections to come visit with us. And then from there, you're pretty close to most parts of Virginia within a matter of a few hours drive. And we have great interstates. And in fact, we within 24 hours of where we are, you can provide product if you're in the product business to almost 50% of the United States population up and down the East Coast and then to the West. We have a huge technology practice or sector here. We've got about 180,000 jobs. I mentioned cybersecurity is a big part of that. I mentioned Amazon. We've got data centers all over the place here. So we pride ourselves on being business friendly. We're a right to work state, which is a positive thing as we compare ourselves to other states. And we are CNBC's reigning best state to do business in the country. And so I'm bragging, but we should probably not be quite as boastful, but we're very, very proud of that. And we're working hard to be able to repeat that if we can here in 2021. And so I guess in closing, I would like to just thank you all for letting me speak to you. This is going to be a wonderful webinar, excuse me. And I want to welcome you, and I hope we'll be able to see you in Virginia in 2021. And we would be very happy to help you with any of the business endeavors that you all are pursuing. And I hope to be over there in 2021 as well. So look forward to more interaction with you. And thank you again, Allison, for inviting me to speak this evening.
You're very welcome. Thank you so much. And I think there's lots and lots to take away from your remarks. I think you're absolutely right to, as we would say, blow your own trumpet, because you're naturally very proud. And actually, I guess what that means is that we have chosen well, because there are so many opportunities. I think Dundee is one of the cities that's got a lot of work to do, a lot to prove, but yet was on the cover of Time magazine as one of the best cities in Europe to visit. Our V&A is such an amazing design museum in Scotland, but we're also looking at big investment opportunities. So at the moment, one of our universities is talking with Amazon about creating an esports arena here. So they're talking about 8,000 or 12,000 people being able to come here and play esports. Now, if ever I felt my age, it's when you say something like that and you go, what actually is an esports arena? But it's just fascinating. I think that, those business connections and Amazon connections are kind of, something that we have in common too. So we're very much looking forward to exploring the sector-based opportunities that there are. And I'm delighted that you were raving so much about Angie, because she's our next speaker. So again, on the seminar that my colleague Keith was part of recently, he came back and said to me, Ellen had told us that Virginia was a really good opportunity for us, and he heard Angie speak and said we need to get her as part of our partnership, but also on our webinar. So thank you, Angie, for joining us, and over to you to do your presentation.
Yes, thank you so much, Alison, and I'm very excited to be here with you tonight, and I look very much also forward to the mission that we will have next year, first a virtual one, and then later on also hopefully followed by a physical mission. And again, without King James VI of Scotland or King James I of England and Ireland, there would be no Virginia, because it is due to King James, I keep calling him the Sixth, he established the Virginia Company in 1606 with the goal of establishing settlements in the New World, which was the United States at this time. And obviously they landed in Virginia, and we're very grateful for this. Let me forward one slide. So I'm going to speak to you about Virginia. We are America's top state for business, and our department has also been named the #1 most competitive economic development group in the United States. And VDP is the principal state economic development organization that supports development and expansions of businesses, whether they're domestic or international, in the Commonwealth of Virginia. And we have a variety of services that we provide to companies, international companies, looking at Virginia as a hub for its US operations. And I'll go into more details about this. But first, just like our Secretary Brian Ball, let me brag for a second and speak about our rankings. It is more important than the rankings that we are the #1 for your company, that we are in the #1 location for you to thrive. Obviously, the business climate makes the states very attractive, and there are major state-led initiatives that increase the competitiveness of Virginia and its businesses as well. And CNBC also ranked us the #1 state for education, and 38% of the population in Virginia has a bachelor's degree or higher, making the Commonwealth the 6th most educated state in the country and the 1st in the southern United States. And we're also very proud of our workforce. It is, and it always has been, one of the most productive and educated populations in the country. And of course, our higher education, there are great universities in Virginia that you are familiar with. Secretary mentioned Longwood College, but there are also universities such as the University of Virginia, Williams and Mary, Old Dominion, Commonwealth University, etc. But the most important thing what these universities do for the Commonwealth and for US companies looking to locate in Virginia is that they provide you the talent that you will need to successfully operate in the United States. With this, the bragging session is finished, and I'm gonna go into the more detailed analysis. Virginia is strategically located on the east coast of the United States. And for those of you who are not that familiar with the US, in the north, Virginia borders on Washington, DC, in the south to North Carolina. We have a coastline as well with the Port of Virginia that the Secretary mentioned that provides easy access. Also, we have 2 large airports. One of them is Washington Dulles Airport, which our marketing team is still working on renaming to Virginia Washington because it is located in Virginia, not in Washington, DC. And then also Ronald Reagan or National Airport. We also have other major airports throughout the states in our capital, Richmond, which is just about where my mouse is hovering now, Roanoke on the western side of the state, and also Norfolk, close to the Port of Virginia. And as we discussed prior to this webinar, I'm going to give also a brief overview of the various industries that are clustered in Virginia. And this is the whole list of our key industries in Virginia here. I want to point out headquarters, as I'm not going to speak about this, but there are many international and also domestic companies that are headquartered in Virginia, A, for the proximity to Washington, DC, but B, also because Virginia is such a great location. And as you can already see here, Virginia's industries are as diverse as its geography. We have the largest data center market in the United States and the second highest concentration of tech workers as well. And now coming to the more detailed information about the industries, and I'm only, due to the time constraints, go into very briefly into some details here. I'll be happy to follow up with more information. Please feel free to reach out to me. I'm going to put also my email address into the chat. Cybersecurity is one of Virginia's key industries. We have been named the #1 cybersecurity leader in the nation in the United States, and we have the highest number of information security analysts in the United States. We have a total workforce of about 65,000 in the cybersecurity industry, and that is only second to California, which is a much larger state with 79,000. Hand in hand with cybersecurity goes software. We have a dynamic roster of software companies. Secretary Ball already mentioned Amazon. We won the HQ2. That's the second headquarter of Amazon on the East Coast, and that was due to the talent that we bring to the table. We have an incredible pipeline of talent that's already available, that is moving to the Commonwealth of Virginia from other states, and that is also being grown actively by our leadership, by Governor Northam, by adding tech talent pipeline through our universities and community colleges. We also have a thriving tourism industry, and that is supported by the Virginia Tourism Corporation, a sister agency to VDP, and I'll be happy to facilitate introductions as necessary. Our tourism industry generated 27, I was about to say 72 billion, but it's only 27 billion in domestic travel, and also has an incredible growth rate of about almost 4% since 2010. Aerospace is another one of our key industries. We have about 300 aerospace companies in the Commonwealth. That is also a growing industry in Virginia. Some key names include Boeing, Aerojet, Rocketdyne, Orbital ATK, Aurora Flight Sciences, which is one of our leaders in the unmanned sector. And we also have a commercial spaceport in Virginia on the Eastern Shore, which is used for launches to the ISS space station. Data centers, obviously, this is the publicly available information on data center locations in the in Virginia. The actual number of data centers in the Commonwealth of Virginia is of course higher, but as you all know, data centers are usually a little bit more secretive. 70% of the worldwide internet traffic flows through data centers in Virginia, in Northern Virginia specifically, and we also have plenty of dark fiber available. And since I'm now already almost at the end of my time, I'm gonna go very quickly through our business environment. We have a AAA state bond rating, something that we're very proud of. Right to work state, very important for companies that are establishing operations here. Stable corporate income tax rate that hasn't changed in 47 years. We also have a great workforce pipeline, as I mentioned before, through our system of universities, colleges, and community colleges. And I would like to point out that 60% of Virginia's talent stays in Virginia after graduation, therefore offering you incredible talent to further your business in the United States. And Virginia has also been named for the best quality of life by Forbes magazine in the United States. We have beaches, we have beautiful old towns such as Alexandria, for example. And we also have incredible, beautiful mountains, almost like the Highlands, down in southwestern Virginia. And I'm going to skip through the next slides, which are the major initiatives. We are actively working on increasing our global reach through the Port of Virginia. We also have a talent accelerator program that we make available to companies as an incentive for job creation. We already spoke about Amazon HQ2 and the Tech Talent Investment Program to make sure that businesses do have access to talent as they come and locate in Virginia. Last slides, how can we help? What is it that we do? We support international business, specifically by having an office over here in Europe. It shows our commitment to support companies from Scotland and other places as well, but primarily Scotland for this webinar. But we assist you in identifying sites and buildings that fit your need. We provide information on tax and also other business costs. And we also are able to support you with supply chain research. And of course, also incentives that are available to businesses locating in Virginia. Recent major wins include companies and projects from all industries and also pretty much all nations. We have more than 1,100 international companies that have located in the Commonwealth of Virginia. And we would be very happy to add more Scottish companies to this list. With this, I'm already at the end of my presentation. Thank you so much for your attention. I really appreciate it, and I look forward to hearing from you. And once travel will be possible again, I can't wait to get back to Scotland. Love it. Thank you.
Angie, thank you. Now, you might have to excuse me because my laptop kicked me out of Zoom and I couldn't get back in, so I'm now on the iPad. I'm not sitting in the right spot at all, but I'm hoping that you can hear me properly. Angie, will you give me,
yes.
you can hear me, good, yes. Okay.
I hear you perfectly.
It's called Making the Best of It, and what I'll do is introduce the next speaker and then try and get back on my laptop, and then at least it will, you know, look a bit better. But I'm not really the main thing that people are here to hear about anyway. It's definitely about listening to those of you that can tell us about the marketplace and all of the opportunities that are there. And I'm delighted to hand over to our next set of partners. Now, we've been working with Marie and with her colleague as well, Jerry, and I think Marie is going to take us through a similar kind of update, but about Alexandria this time around. So Marie, over to you.
Thank you, and thanks for the Chamber for inviting us to present today. I'm sorry, Jerry, our Vice President of Business Development, something come up, so he wasn't able to attend today, but I will share my screen now and we can go through the presentation to tell you a little bit more about Alexandria. Okay, so here to get started. I work for the Alexandria Economic Development Partnership, so we are a nonprofit. We are a public-private partnership. We're primarily funded by the City of Alexandria. And like all economic development organizations, we have two main goals. One is to promote the City of Alexandria as a good place to do business, and the other is to help our existing businesses. So Alexandria is an independent city in Virginia. It's kind of if you're familiar with the way that the jurisdictions work in the US, we have states, counties, and then cities. Alexandria being an independent city, we're not part of a larger county. We're about a team of 10 we have expertise in marketing and communications, real estate, research, and business development. Alexandria is a city with Scottish roots. We were actually founded by 3 Scottish merchants. We were named after John Alexander, who is of Scottish descent. And the photo you're seeing here is of the Scottish Walk parade, which was mentioned earlier. It's a 50-year tradition. Unfortunately, it's not happening this year due to COVID, but our Visitors Bureau has put together a terrific video that kind of captures the energy of the parade. So time allowing, or in a follow-up email, I'd be happy to share that with you so you can get a little bit better understanding of how we celebrate our Scottish heritage. So to talk a little bit about the demographics of Alexandria, I think it's best described kind of as a small city within a larger metropolitan area. So we're about 160,000 people. Our median income is about $100,000, almost 80,000 pounds. And like the rest of Virginia, it's a very highly educated city. Over 30% have a graduate or professional degree. and nearly 30% of our population have a bachelor's degree. And then our demographics, our population by age, you see it's mostly within that prime working age from about 25 to 45 years old. To give you an idea of how we kind of fit within Virginia and in relation to Washington, D.C., larger metropolitan area, we're about, you know, in the middle. We're about a 5-hour drive from New York City. We're less than a 2-hour flight to Atlanta. And obviously you can get to the Midwest. It's also a very short flight. And so if you look at this map on the bottom left, down in the corner, the Alexandria is there in red. And then Washington, D.C. is that larger, darker blue area. And what, you know, kind of encapsulates that whole Washington metro region is the Capitol Beltway 495, which is the white circle there around the city. So Alexandria is very well connected to the larger Washington, D.C. metro area. We have 4 metro rail stops, the 5th coming to Potomac Yard in 2022. We already mentioned the airports in previous presentations, National Airport, which is very close to Alexandria, and then Dulles International Airport, which is a little over 30 miles kind of to our west. The things that, you know, that people talk about when they think about Alexandria is the business ecosystem. I think it is a very tight-knit community. There is a lot of camaraderie amongst the businesses here, and also the quality of life. Time and time again, we hear when people decided where they wanted to locate their business or open their business in the greater Washington metro area, Alexandria is constantly near the top just because it offers a high quality of life. You have access to the metro DC area, but we have housing, entertainment, high quality retail space down here in Alexandria. So we can kind of go around and talk about the different neighborhoods. Starting at the top here, Arlandria is kind of characterized by some of our smaller locally owned businesses. Del Rey is like Old Town, it's kind of one of our main streets. So a lot of shopping, retail, and also offices for businesses, like about 100 people and less. Potomac Yard is a neighborhood that we'll talk more about later on in terms of Virginia Tech. But that has, is part of the larger Amazon announcement, Amazon HQ2, Virginia Tech, and it also has some buildable land there in Potomac Yard. Down in Carlisle, we call it, or one of the local businessmen has referred to it as the intellectual property capital of the world. That is where our United States Patent and Trademark Office is, National Science Foundation, which supports a lot of research and development, and all of the law firms and accounting firms are in that neighborhood. Eisenhower Valley is where we have a little bit more of our, if you're looking for any kind of like warehouse industrial space, that has some more eclectic businesses in Eisenhower Valley. And then obviously on the west end, we also have some larger real estate, if that's what you're looking for. To kind of give a visual representation, if you have not been to Alexandria before, this is our Old Town. So this is what most people associate when they talk about Alexandria. It's our quaint, it's our historic district. It's there along the waterfront on the Potomac River. It also has dedicated public space, public art, which you can see there in the photo on the bottom right. This is Carlisle, again, where they have the US Patent and Trademark Office, the National Science Foundation. If you look at the photo on the left, and the buildings on the left with the white facade, those are some of the recently renovated office buildings that can hold large tenants. We also have some new multifamily developments going in that neighborhood, as well as neighborhood amenities like grocery stores, retail. Again, on the photo on the left, the building on the right is the National Science Foundation. They have about 4,000 employees. And then the photo on the right is the US Patent and Trademark Office. There are about 10,000 employees that work there. This is the Potomac Yard neighborhood. So this, when Amazon announced that they were coming to Northern Virginia, they will be in Arlington. And then Potomac Yard is part of the larger, the planned area there. We call it National Landing. It's a Pentagon City, Crystal City, and Potomac Yard. So you see on the photo here on the left, at the top left, there's a future Amazon HQ2. There's an arrow pointing there. You'll see that the future Virginia Tech Innovation Campus is there in purple. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. We have a representative from Virginia Tech. So when we get to the Q&A portion of this presentation, we can talk, she can answer any specific questions. That is the location of the future Metro Rail station. And then obviously you can see how close it is to the Washington Monument, the Capitol Building, and the Reagan National Airport. And a little bit more about Potomac Yard, talking about how there's still land to be developed. This is the, on the bottom right here, is a photo of the National Industries of the Blind. And they were one of several organizations that have chosen to build their own office building, new office building in the Potomac Yard area. So here's a list of our key industries. Heavily focused on the professional services, so creative services, marketing, communications, architects and engineers, financial services, management consulting. We also have a few prominent venture capital firms, IT and cybersecurity, like Virginia. It's a strong cluster of ours here in Alexandria, and also nonprofits, associations, federal government, and headquarters. And here's some of our employers by industry in the same order that was listed on the other slide. We have some large marketing communications firms like Rheingold and Morvang, and then some smaller firms, but that have an impressive client list, such as Yes and Greenbuzz. Engineering firms such as Michael Baker, accounting firms such as Carney and Cotton and Company. Some of our financial services venture capital firms. One you might recognize is Motley Fool. They have their headquarters in Alexandria. QED Investors is a venture capital firm founded by the same gentleman that started Capital One Bank. Columbia Capital is also another prominent venture capital firm in Alexandria. IT and cybersecurity, so we have Systems Planning and Analysis and Invictus International. A lot of the firms, especially in the cybersecurity realm, were previously worked for the government and have started their own firms here in Alexandria for some government contracting. Society for Human Resource Management is a large nonprofit. And then we already mentioned the National Science Foundation, USPTO. We also have a Department of Defense, presence in Alexandria. And then some of our headquarters, United Way, the regional headquarters for our Metro Rail system, WMATA, and then the Salvation Army. And I'd point you, if you're interested in any of these industries, follow up with any specific questions. I can give you more detailed information, but I would also point you to our website, alexandriaecon.org. And we've listed all of our major employers per industry sector, and you can also click on their website to kind of get a little bit more information about them. So Virginia Tech Innovation Campus is our biggest announcement. So when they announced that Amazon HQ2 was coming into the area in November 2018, at the same time they announced the arrival of the Virginia Tech Innovation Campus, which is a $1 billion investment over, it could be 10 years. In this slide, you can see a rendering of building 1, which will be 300,000 feet of academic space. And some information about that. It's going to be, like I said, $1 billion investment, 600,000 square feet campus. It'll host master's and doctoral level students with focus in computer science and computer engineering degrees. The entire district will have a variety of different spaces, and I can show you in a slide with more details. But there'll be an incubator space for startup companies, places for research and development, and also for industry collaboration. And I've listed their website here at the bottom of the slide. So here on the left is a rendering of the Virginia Tech campus. So up here, those white buildings are the first ones that will be developed. Again, that one is building 1. And then we have 2 other buildings, which are shown here in maroon. So there'll be a partnership building, which is 7W. And that will be delivered, completed construction 2024. And then the rest of the building will be mixed use. So you can see that there's a key at the bottom. There'll be office space, residential space, mixed into these academic buildings here on the Virginia Tech campus. And here's a more detailed look at the degree programs that will be offered. Human-centered research, artificial intelligence, next generation communications, quantum computing, augmented and virtual reality, cybersecurity, data ethics, and autonomous vehicles. That is a recap of Alexandria. You know, as I mentioned earlier, if there's a specific industry that you're interested in, to get more information, whether about existing companies here, our talent pipeline, or available real estate, happy to talk about any of that.
Brilliant, Marie. Thank you so much. I hugely appreciate that. I mean, we've talked a lot on the meetings that we've been having about some of those opportunities, but really getting the chance to kind of hear it and see the scale of some of these buildings and some of these investments is really great. Okay, next up is Brendan. So Brendan Richardson, Brendan, we're going to hear about what it's like to actually do business and kind of hear from you about some of your experiences. So over to you.
Thanks so much. I really appreciate it. Let me just pull up my screen here. Sorry for the delay. It seems to have disappeared in my, here we go. Whoops, that's the wrong one. There we go. Thanks for including me in this. I always welcome the opportunity to talk to Scottish business people and entrepreneurs. My perspective will be a little bit different than my co-speakers, although I would endorse and support everything that they've said about the state of Virginia and its friendliness for business, particularly welcoming to international activity and coming as a gateway to the U.S. market. My perspective, I just want to talk a little bit about where I'm coming from and what I've been doing, and it's really more tactical, I think, than strategic. I've really been down in the weeds for the last 20 years, both in the US, but also in Europe. I spent the first part of my career as a venture capital investor based in Silicon Valley, as well as in Europe. And for 12 years, both invested in and sat on the boards of many EU-based startups, including in Scotland, that were all looking to access the US market and more generally global markets, but principally helping those companies as early stage businesses, mostly in tech, penetrate the US market and gain foothold here. Based on that activity, and particularly some focus around Scotland and all the technology that comes out of Scotland. I've been a global Scot since 2001, so have had a lot of opportunities to go back and forth and spend quite a bit of time in Scotland. And I feel like I've got a pretty good appreciation for everything that Scotland has to offer, which is maybe not as appreciated across the rest of the US. And in fact, in 2009, I spent a little over a year with some partners in Scotland, raising an early stage venture fund to focus on investing in Scottish technology startups. It was called North Face Ventures. Unfortunately for us, our fundraising was timed almost perfectly with the end of the financial crisis. And so we got some traction, but we're never able to complete that fundraising. So I then went on and became an entrepreneur around technology. And instead of doing that in Silicon Valley, where I had spent 20 years, I relocated to Charlottesville, Virginia, where I had gone to the University of Virginia as an undergrad, but also because of everything that people have been saying already, which is, as a place to do business, Virginia is I would, in my perspective, far superior than any other place in the US, California included. Cost-wise, tax-wise, technology-wise, resource-wise, both human capital and investment capital and every other resource that you could think of. Virginia punches way above its weight, and certainly on par with California or any other localized market in the US that you'd think about. Since 2019, I've had the good fortune of working with one of my previous North Face venture partners in a company that's based in Invergowrie, just outside of Dundee, which you guys will all be familiar with, called Intelligent Growth Solutions, probably the premier and leading technology provider of indoor farming technology, basically allowing scalable industrial scale vertical farming anywhere on the planet. And so I get the opportunity to travel back and forth to Dundee for board meetings on a regular basis when COVID is not in force. So I look forward to getting back there as soon as possible. So with that background, I just wanted to share some of the observations that I have gleaned over 20 years of helping companies sort of think about and execute on penetrating the US. I'll put a couple caveats in this. This is focused on technology. My background is entirely in technology, and so hopefully this will be generalized enough for those of you that are working in other areas. And the other bias that I have is that it's typically early stage. Rather than established businesses, it's how do early stage technology companies get a foothold in the US market and how to capitalize on that. So in no particular order, I'll go through these fairly quickly, and I'd like to sort of open it up to questions if there are any, sooner rather than later. As you probably are already aware, and certainly on this call, there's a strong affection for Scotland in the US. That's a huge advantage. It opens doors. It allows you to get meetings and really get a warm embrace from potential partners or customers in the US. But I will also say that beyond this panel, there's probably a somewhat naive view of everything that Scotland has to offer. Most Americans, if you basically took the typical American, they would think of Scotland as, you know, the golf capital, the single malt capital, and the travel capital that we all sort of have in our heads is when we think about Scotland. What they don't realize is the technology that Scotland produces on a regular basis, and a broad array of the other things that Scotland produces. And most Americans are not aware, as I am, that, you know, Scotland invented the modern world. They don't get credit for it, but certainly everything that we've built upon in the US has probably originated in some form or fashion in Scotland. In talking to a lot of entrepreneurs, Scottish and otherwise, that are thinking about coming to the US, it bears repeating that the US is big, it's diverse, and it's really complicated. That said, it's an awesome place, obviously from a market scale size. It's enormous. And so it's worth making the leap. The water's warm. but it's really hard to just dip your toe in and get traction and a real sense of the opportunity if you're thinking about doing business here. It requires a commitment. I'll talk a little bit about more of that in a second. From a technology standpoint, it's very sophisticated technology market. Customers have a wide range of options across all technology sectors in terms of vendors, et cetera. And so it's not a place to try and do business if you're not committed to doing it over the long term, if you don't really have a resource base to make that commitment, and if what you're trying to sell is sort of as good as what's already available here. There has to be some distinct advantage in your offering. That could be measured across all kinds of different vectors, but just thinking the US is a big market and we should go there really requires a lot more thinking strategically than that. So the point here is make sure you're ready. Be prepared to educate your customer. What I mean by that is sophisticated customers are busy. They have time to take a meeting, but it's really incumbent upon you, if you're going to make that effort, to be prepared in understanding the customer's needs ahead of time, what those pain points are and how you solve those pain points, and not just proffering a piece of technology and leaving it up to the customer to figure out how it does or doesn't solve their issues. Customers here tend to be price sensitive, but not so much as unique selling point sensitive. What is it that you can do that furthers my business, makes me more profitable, solves a big pain point, gives me more customers, et cetera? And if that's the case, and if you can articulate that, then price becomes way less of an issue. I would say observing dozens of European startups that have either successfully or unsuccessfully made it in the US market, being as local as possible helps significantly. But that said, a local presence is not the first person that you find to be a sales rep. I would say the default for European startups that I've observed is they meet a potential sales rep. That sales rep is articulate, talks very well about their market access and their network. They get hired and then nothing happens. And it's because that sales rep is really a third or fourth rate sales rep by US standards. It's important to do due diligence about any potential partners that you're going to have in the US, and not just take the first one that seems competent and affordable. Oftentimes in this situation, you get what you pay for. Choose your location carefully as well. I can't stress enough my 2 decades in California and my decade and a half in Virginia. I would choose Virginia 10 times out of 10 in order to start a business or locate a business, for all the reasons that the previous speakers have mentioned. California is a really hard place to do business, despite the fact that Silicon Valley is viewed as the center of the technology universe. It's not an easy place to work. It's not an easy place to penetrate. It's not an easy place to network. Places like Virginia and all up and down the East Coast, for that matter, are much easier places to operate from, cost-wise, talent-wise, recruiting-wise, resource-wise than anything on the West Coast, in my experience. Networking is critical, like it is anywhere, and very importantly, making sure that you have thought through how you will support customers post-sale, either locally or from a distance, is critical. How are you going to provide that? It's going to be an important part of the conversation with any customer. Be prepared for failure and or rejection, right? The US is a big place. There's a lot of customers to talk to. Don't wait until you've got the perfect thing to start working in this market. Start collecting some no's. Those no's and those rejections from customers are invaluable market feedback. That's where you learn where the real opportunity is. And that obviously requires persistence. And maybe finally, a yes in the US is really just a maybe. I've observed lots of entrepreneurs come here, have really positive meetings with potential customers in the US, a lot of smiling, a lot of encouragement, and then take that as they're ready to buy. This US customer is ready to buy. They loved our solution, when in reality, the US customer is being polite, and an invitation to further the conversation is just that. An invitation to, like, let's explore this, should be interpreted as you are number 61 to 312 on their priority list. You're not number one, and that's not a purchase order. That's fine, but it's incumbent upon you to be persistent and continue knocking on that customer's door until you're told a hard no. Okay. I've seen a lot of startups get yesed to death, meaning, hey, this is great, we want to explore this, but nothing ever comes of it. And banking on that as a real potential customer can lead to a lot of disappointment, but also a lot of wasted resources. So with that, my key takeaways for anybody, whether you're a technology entrepreneur or anybody that wants to do business in the US and Virginia in particular, come on. We love you guys. Like, we'd love for you to come over. You'll get a lot of attention. So don't hesitate, but be prepared to make a commitment to it. I would say you should think about this as a minimum of a 2-year timeframe commitment to penetrate the US market and get real traction. At least in the technology space, it may be different in other sectors. And make sure you have the resources, the human resources and the capital resources. It's not a particularly cheap place to do business from a distance. It is going to require resources on the ground if you want to be successful here in the long term. But there's plenty of ways to do it effectively and strategically. And I would say the number one thing to do first is to take advantage of all the resources that are set up to help you. That includes the Chamber of Commerce, Scottish Enterprise, and plenty of resources in the US that are geared to helping you succeed and make the right connections and the right decisions when you come here. And finally, thank you. Let's debate this and have lots of questions. And if I can be helpful to any of you personally, please don't hesitate to reach out. I really enjoy interacting with folks and helping them figure out their strategy in the US and elsewhere. So thanks.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. So what I would do is just invite anybody that does have a question either to put it in the chat, get my attention, keep your camera on and wave lots, or put your virtual Zoom hand up if that's what you'd like to do. But before I kind of put it over to you, to the floor, there is one last person that we haven't had do a formal presentation, but that I just wanted to invite in to say a few words, because Ian Houston has been really instrumental in helping us, I think, as a chamber, understand the market is a real advocate for the Scottish US relationship. And those of you that have that follow Ian on LinkedIn will see all sorts of really amazing stories and kind of a real passion for Scotland and what we're doing. So Ian, do you just want to say a few words about your role over there and kind of what you've been doing to support us?
Absolutely, and I'll keep it very brief, and thank you so much for all the comments that have been made. Inspirational, and so I'm uplifted. I don't know how everyone else feels, but I love the bridging between the history of Scotland, that we revere that history and we bridge it to the future and modern Scotland, and also Virginia, which also sometimes can be, the Virginians on the call will know that sometimes Virginia can get locked into history, like the past, but it has a very modern story to tell, and I think that's very much emerged. As the ambassador for the Scottish Business Network here in Washington, D.C., I'm here to help. I'll say that to those who are representing Virginia, but also those who are from Dundee. And so my nature and my purpose here as the ambassador for the Scottish Business Network is to play the role, a little bit what Brandon was saying, being a resource and trying to be helpful. Specifically to the commerce itself, what an incredible organization of a diverse group of entities that you all are. Some will be larger than others, but I'm here to be of support. Yesterday was St. Andrew's Day. It's a holiday that sometimes gets lost in the shadows of St. Patrick's Day, but to Scots around the world is equally as important. And we need to always remember that St. Andrew's Day itself, why ironically a national day in Scotland, was actually started in the United States in South Carolina. And then it was brought back to Scotland as a national holiday. So the connections are deep. Allison, it's my pleasure really to help the commerce objectives both in Virginia and beyond. I would just very briefly echo what was said about the geographic connection to Washington, D.C. We did talk about that in depth, but I think strategically that's very, very important for a variety of reasons, because there are entities within the federal government that also can be mobilized and useful to businesses who may wish to come to the United States and Virginia specifically. In the United States Chamber of Commerce, within the International Trade Administration, there are people who are there to help. They're employed to do just that, to help businesses who wish to relocate into the United States. So with that, Allison, just a pleasure to help you and help your members, whether collectively or individually. I'm ready to be of service.
Thank you so much. And so does anybody want to come in and ask any of our speakers, or just you know, even if it's an observation rather than an out and out question, it's just kind of the time for us to be able to pick their collective brains, although not the end of the chance for you to make these connections. You're all being very shy. I might ask something and see whether that it just gets the conversation going. Angie, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I'm just so pleased that we have at least 2 University of Virginia graduates here, Brendan and Secretary Ball. Wow.
I was going to congratulate Brendan on where he went to school, but that would sound very self-serving. But we're both proud graduates of the University of Virginia, and then I went on to law school there. And I second everything he says about Charlottesville and the wonderful educational opportunities that we were afforded there. And I think any of you that might be here or be here temporarily it's a great place to have children in school.
Yes.
Let's also make a plug for Virginia Tech, because I teach at the University of Virginia. I'm a graduate. It's near and dear to my heart, but we don't hold the candle to Virginia Tech in terms of engineering, agricultural sciences. That is a world-class university that does not get nearly as much press as it should. Virginia steals the limelight a little bit.
It pains me to agree with Brendan on this point,
Yeah.
but he's absolutely right.
And I would like to mention that 2 points. The University of Virginia also has a great research park, and Brendan, I believe the company that you're with also received support from the city of Charlottesville, as well as the Regional Economic Development Organization there, and also our former governor, McAuliffe, when you all announced that you're going to start operations. And then with regards to Virginia Tech, we also have a virtual mission that will visit with Virginia Tech in the area of unmanned systems. So if that is of interest to anybody, and that is specifically from Europe and also the UK, so if anybody is interested in more information on this, please let me know. I'll be happy to help, and I'll also share that information with Allison to multiply out again.
Perfect. Colin.
Hello, everybody. I think the lack of questions is more of a stunned silence because of what you've told us about Virginia and the opportunities. Really just an observation. It's fantastic to actually hear and see effectively a landing pad for businesses. I mean, I've got 3 businesses. One's a tech business and one's a social enterprise. And, you know, it's quite daunting to think about internationalization when you don't have the support that has been demonstrated today on the call. So thank you very much, because it actually gets my entrepreneurial juices flowing to think, right, okay, what we need to do once we're allowed is to get the plane ticket and get over there. So yeah, that's really good. So it's mainly an observation, but thank you very much for your support and participation today, and of course Alison and the team for organising it. Yeah, it looks like an opportunity that wasn't an opportunity at the beginning of this evening for us. So thank you.
Good. Let me just reiterate, you know, certainly for tech businesses, the first place everybody thinks about is Silicon Valley and California. And, you know, I'll just say, having lived there for 20 years and now living in Virginia, this is the place to be. Quality of life, just opportunity, resource. It's so much easier doing business here than it is in California. And it's a lot closer to Europe. And you can, you know, there are direct flights from Dulles into Edinburgh on a daily basis when COVID's not in force, and even into Glasgow, certain times of the year. So it's a lot easier to get here than it is to the West Coast, and a lot easier to do business.
You know what, that somewhat chimes with my experience of living and working in England for a very long time, and then moving up to Scotland, you know, in 2002. It's a much better place to do business. Everybody speaks to each other. Everybody's very open, and it's a very collegiate kind of feel. So yeah, I understand what you mean.
You didn't sound very Scottish to me, so you just explained that. So you...
I stay in Fife, and everybody, you can get away with that in Fife.
I'm going to spare your blushes a little bit, Colin, but Colin used to be the president of our Chamber of Commerce and was on our board for a long time, but very much kind of brings that champion of the internationalization to what we do. Colin, you lived and worked in Asia and in Scandinavia for a long time, didn't you? So I think that the work that the Scottish Chamber Network is now doing is long overdue to Colin's to-do list, I think.
Yeah, and it's great to see that kind of what's happening, Alison, because, you know, this collection of great speakers that you've pulled together, and speaking on behalf of a number of businesses that I deal with, not just my own, but on others, you know, this is fantastic. I will be telling them very quickly, you know, you need to really, you know, get your act into gear and think about going international, and Virginia being a really great place to do that, especially in the tech space, and also the educational side and the spin-offs that are going to come from that. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and I think similarly to your experiences in Virginia, I mean, Dundee is host to 2 universities that are, you know, work side by side in terms of the graduates that they produce. And our city itself has got, you know, more than 20,000 university students. Quite a large percentage of our population are university students. St Andrews is very close to us with its similar number of students that are here from all across the globe. So there are a lot of people that are studying and looking to make business connections in there as well. And in terms of our next step, so as we were talking about, we will do a virtual mission in March next year, and early on in the new year we'll run a sort of probably a one-day workshop that will really help us do some deep dive into the companies that are really interested in getting involved in the virtual mission, and then a physical mission later on in the year. and we already, as kind of as partners, identified some key sectors that we felt we would champion, but not be exclusive to in this this trade mission that's coming up. So we were particularly looking at technology, so ICT and e-commerce being real massive opportunities in Virginia, but life sciences, so I can see Gavin's here from Selexis, so life sciences and professional services, and we've got food and beverage processing on here as well, because you know the wider parts of Virginia and the opportunities that are there are pretty immense. I like that Brian really opened up by talking about those bourbon barrels, because that makes a huge difference to a Speyside malt whiskey when it's in a bourbon cask. It just gives it a completely different taste, and it's, you know, I know that they use a lot of those, so it's great that we've got that connection. So really a number of sector-based opportunities, but not exclusive to that list, but certainly lots and lots of ways that our business communities can connect and work with each other. And the virtual trade mission that we do will be a mixture of some experiences meeting with and hearing presentations from people that are, you know their industry inside out within Virginia, but also a significant number of business-to-business meetings that we will help put together to help businesses from Scotland be able to actually talk to businesses and entrepreneurs as part of that virtual trade mission, so that they begin to have some of these yes, maybe conversations that Brendan talked about. And so we very much look forward to kind of moving all of that on in the run up to the festive period, and then as we come back in the new year. I just want I guess a final few questions from me really, and it's more for my colleagues that are kind of in Virginia or have knowledge of the market, and it's more about how the kind of current pandemic is feeling and what business is kind of operating like. So I mean, we are obviously in Europe not traveling a lot yet at the moment, but yet are using technology in this way to make sure that we really carry on and make them the best of our business development opportunities. And I just wondered if you might say, you know, whether maybe Marie, I guess, or maybe Brendan, just about how business is operating at the moment and kind of the general environment.
So I can say about Alexandria. I mean, obviously our office has been working virtually since March, and we're meeting with a lot of businesses through our regular business retention outreach, or we have a few grant programs. You know, a lot of office workers have worked remotely because they've found that has worked well for their staff, and then they've still been pretty effective that way. In terms of businesses that rely on customers and a lot of storefront activity, Alexandria has been doing some pretty great things to make sure everyone feels safe. I mean, there's been some, from the governor of Virginia, there's been a lot of directives on how to stay safe during COVID, and also at the local level in terms of, you know, requiring masks. There's also in collaboration with the Alexandria Health Department, we have an Alexandria Promise program. So it's a training course that any kind of retail business can go through, retail or any kind of forward-facing business can go through, and they'll get a sticker to display on their windows saying that they have have pledged to withhold certain safety standards, and they expect anyone entering the business to do the same. So I think it is a lot of just adapting and you know, protecting their employees, their businesses, but also just getting on with doing business.
Agree. Charlottesville, the same. You know, we have a world-class hospital attached to the university here, teaching hospital, that is, you know, in the forefront with many others in finding, you know, vaccines and pioneering research in vaccines for this stuff. So certainly, I would say Charlottesville and Richmond, and Virginia as a whole is probably at the forefront of taking COVID-19 really seriously at the state level, unlike some of our, you know, some of the other states in the U.S. that maybe are not. And that's reflected, I think, in the number of cases that Virginia sees as per capita. And in Charlottesville, I don't know about Alexandria, but in Charlottesville, it's, you know, nobody's not masking and social distancing and taking this very seriously. So,
and just to complete that thought, I'm probably interrupting a bit, but the positivity rate in the Charlottesville Health District is below 2%. And it just shows you, if you do what Marie's talking about, which is mask, socially distance, you can do so much more economically. You can travel. I've traveled commercially on commercial flights since this started. I did it with some angst, but I was comfortable doing it. And I've traveled by car quite a bit. And if you wear a mask and do the things that are being recommended or directed, then we can keep moving forward. And it's, as Brennan said, there are states where they haven't bought into that, and they are now, particularly in the western part of the country, Midwest, they are experiencing spikes in cases, and it's very predictable.
Yeah, I think, being in Northern Virginia and the greater Metro DC area, we're a very concentrated place. There's a lot of people coming and going even still. And I think the whole region and the state of Virginia has done an excellent job in being very cautious so that we can continue to live our lives the best we can. And you don't really see a lot of those spikes or overrunning of hospitals or anything like that kind of plagues these other states that are not being as proactive and cautious.
We have had some visitors from Europe. It takes a bit of time now, but Anja can probably talk a bit more about that. So we do have some European companies that have been coming. These are companies that are involved in food or manufacturing, and then they're coming to look at specific sites. So yes. I hope we'll see more of that as we get into 2021. And on the flip side of that is we hope to be in Europe quite a bit in the coming year.
Great. Yes, and it is still possible to travel to the United States. Currently, you would have to apply for what is called a National Interest Exception Waiver. That is an application process that is handled through the consulate or the embassy in London. It is a little complex, but it's doable, and I've seen European companies and also British companies apply for this, and they have received those they've been granted the waiver. Another thing that you mentioned, Allison, that kind of resonated with me is the food and beverage processing industry. That is the second largest industry in Virginia in the manufacturing sector. So we do have many also tea companies that are active already in Commonwealth of Virginia, the largest being Lipton, which produces, I don't know how many million tea bags per day on close to the port of Virginia, where they also import the tea. And the latest announcement that we had with regards to tea was a company called Traditional Medicinals. They established an herbal tea manufacturing and processing facility in Franklin County, Virginia. And that may be a good connection for the company that you just mentioned that is dealing with tea or in the tea business.
Perfect, because you read my mind. I was just about to say we've got a question. I was just asking Antosa if it was better just for me to kind of say the comments. So yeah, we have got somebody on our webinar that is in tea and was just looking for some help and expert advice on who to kind of connect with in Virginia. So Lipton sounds like an ideal connection. Fab. That sounds amazing. Yeah.
Be happy to follow up by email. Please send me a brief email and let me know how we can assist.
Brilliant. Yeah. No, we'll make sure to connect you both. So that's fabulous. Okay. No more hands up that I can see. No one else waving at us. And by the looks of it, no more specific questions. So I think,
Hi.
Gavin, come in, Gavin.
No, I'm definitely looking forward to this being a non-virtual mission and getting back to Virginia after 40 years. It'll be good to come back and visit the state again. And we, 2 years ago, had a problem with our supply chain, and we ended up with a connection into Indiana, which sourced our supply, a fix to our supply problem. And after 2 years of work, that's now coming online this Christmas. It would have been online a year earlier with but COVID got in the way. So we're looking forward to really pushing our business in America and helping our American partners as well.
What type of business is it?
We make a single-use bioreactor. So it's a fermentation chamber aimed at primarily at the life science market, where they can grow cell cultures, etc.
Right.
Is used in the food industry for fermentation of yeast and other things, but we are primarily focused on the life science sector. And the single-use plastic bags are now made in Indiana.
Okay. Well, we'll be happy to provide you with information about our life science and also the F&B sector. And then that is step one. Step two is relocate you all from Indiana to Virginia.
Yeah.
It's taken 2 years to get the process up and running.
Oh, I'm impatient.
Yeah.
Great.
I like it. I like it. So yeah, massive thank you to you all for taking part in our conversation this evening. And as we I think gently warned you at the beginning, we were going to record this evening so that we could make sure that people that weren't able to join us were able to see this on YouTube. So we have had a number of people that weren't able to come on tonight, so we will make sure that the rest of the Scottish businesses that were really interested in this, and those that we talk to in the coming weeks, get the chance to kind of hear all of those brilliant presentations and just get that sense of as Colin said, that real soft landing that's available there, and the massive opportunities that exist. So we really look forward to the next steps and talking to as many of the Scottish businesses as we can get hold of, get them connected into our workshops and the virtual mission, and then the real mission in the new year. So looking forward to much work in 2021 and beyond. And thank you so much to every single speaker that came on and took the time to share their expertise and their connections with us. It's really hugely appreciated. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, and all be safe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Stay healthy. And thanks
Bye.
also to Brendan for being a corporate citizen of Virginia. We appreciate it, really.
Yes, we do.